The entire project that I shot for Lost in Boston, as we spoke about before, it deals with loss in many different fashions. And obviously, like, one of the most important things that I touched on as far as, like, personally throughout Lost in Boston was the sudden loss of, like, my best friend, Leonis, who was a group member of mine in DCFAM, who goes by Dirty Baby. So we just shot a music video with his family and our friends and in certain areas, like where we grew up in important places, for a song that I made dedicated to him. And it kind of talks about the day that I found out that he passed when I was at work. So I just felt that when the audience actually hears the song or sees the video, like, that's great for everybody that knows the situation. But for those who might not know me personally or might not even know what happened or any of that, I feel like this would be like a super important look into, like, who he was as a person, like who he was to me and everybody else, and what part he plays and played in me as, like, a musician. So I didn't really meet Leonis until we were older, but I feel like we had, like, ample opportunities to, like, meet growing up, but we just never did. But I feel like we were kind of, like, going down the same path as people. Leonis was in a tragic fire as a young man, and suffered third degree burns on the majority of his body at a very, very, like, early age. So as far as, like, self-esteem or, like, the perception of yourself or to have self-confidence or any of that goes, just, I don't want to say as a normal person, but as a person that didn't go through that, he always had this ongoing internal battle that, like, you would know at first glance, but who's to say, like, what this man was actually feeling as a child or as a young adult and into adulthood. And me, a lot of the same idea, with, like, struggling with, with self-esteem or, like, trying to figure out, like, who I was as a person, or being shy or being insecure. So we kind of had a lot of similarities. And I remember him as a young man, like, when I was in high school, whether I was in, like, 8th grade or going into my freshman year. Him and Lex and Kenny and Will and Sticks and a bunch of friends that I would, meet later on in life were always, like, freestyling and stuff outside the high school when I was young. And I just remember seeing Third, and he just looked like an unapproachable person, like, very, at first glance, like, very intimidating, very, very much somebody who you wouldn't approach like that. But it was, like, the way he carried himself with such, like, charisma and just very sure of himself. Like, he just embodied what it was to be cool, and, just to have that you can't fuck with me kind of mentality. And for somebody that appeared the way he did, it was even cooler to, I think, everybody that was in his peer circle or might have, who's seen him growing up. And myself seeing that, like, I always was interested in, like, pursuing music or rapping or singing. Like, there were very, very few people who knew I even did that. Like, my father's a musician, my grandfather was a musician, a lot of my family and stuff just play instruments and stuff, so you would figure that I would be more comfortable, like, accepting or just showing that. But the people I hung around with and stuff, like, they didn't have any musical talent, and I was into sports and stuff like that, so I never pursued it. But I always saw them doing that, and ironically enough, we would become like family down the line as we grew up. That's just like the introduction to me even knowing of Third or knowing of Leonis or 30 Baby. This dude with braids and scars and burns all over his body, with a batting glove on his hand, and he just seemed like the coolest dude that you would never want to approach unless you knew him or you were in that circle. At a certain point in like my late teens, early 20s, I needed an outlet for myself, and music like immediately became that. I didn't go to college, sports and stuff, just I put that by the wayside. I had a career in cutting hair, which I still do and I still like enjoy and love to this day. But I needed something to be able to express who I was as a person. I used to be able to do that in a lot of different ways. And then, you know, when it came to a point where I wasn't in school or anything like that, music became something that I no longer wanted to conceal and I wanted to kind of show. In 2010, I started working on a mixtape called Fresh Out the Box with a friend of mine, a producer called Grubby Paws. I remember this one night I was working on, I must have been working on like my first originals in a long time. And there was a lot of people in and out of the studio. I remember I was about to wrap up a session and DCFAM was in the building next door getting, I believe they were getting CDs pressed up at the time when people still put their music on CDs. We were working on a Trey Songz remix, and Third walked in. And here I am, like little dude, and in walks this dude with glasses and his do-rag with his Red Sox fitted on, his thermal, batting glove, shades on. It's fucking midnight. And I'm like, oh my God, like what is going on? Like I know who this is, we never really met. And if you know 30 was just always like very soft-spoken, like very direct, but like very quiet, very, very private about everything. And he walked in and I think this is great. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I think this is great. And Pelage introduced me, and me and Third probably did at least 2 remixes that night. And I didn't really think anything of it. Like I was aware of DCFAM and who they were. They had just released a music video called Load Me Up, so I was well aware. And Third and Will and Kay just had like the craziest deliveries, and as they were somebody like I looked up to, like as far as like local, you know, like people from my city that I looked up to. So working with them that night and being around them was pretty fucking cool. That moment in time was something that really began what I don't think any of us anticipated. Fast forward like 2 or 3 months, and Third was just like a networker. Like he would approach anybody at any point. He could sell himself, and it was super intriguing to anybody that he put himself around. Like he had that energy that you were always curious of who this guy was and what his story is. And if you gave him the opportunity to tell you that, like he was gonna sell it to you. So Third hit us up one day and was like, we had just recorded over a beat, and it was this guitar loop. Just kept going on and on. And Third suggested that I meet them, and we were working with this dude Ziggy. And Third and I showed up to this spot, and he had this idea. He's like, yo, I got this idea. I need you to sing on the hook. And I'm like, at this point, I was only accustomed to recording my own music. So I was kind of like, I don't know, like, I only, I didn't know how that went. So I was like, all right, like, I'll do it. I'll sing the hook for you. And he just had this shell of an idea. And it ended up being Beam Me Up. The night that we recorded that rough draft, I should say, of Beam Me Up, we knew that like something was not only there, but there was something that he and I could do on records that was like, it was eerie. And we got this record and took it home, and I remember writing on it, that what he wrote on it was something along the lines of, we did it, like, this is the hit, this is the one. And I remember like taking that purple CD home, and I think I might even still have it, but something just felt right about that record. And I think we sat on it for about 2 weeks. And like I was saying, Third hit us up and was like, yo, we need to have a meeting. And I need to talk to you guys about something important. So we all met up. And Lou was introduced to us by way of Third. And he said, I got this producer in Quincy, and he's the one. Like, he needs to take this record on, and this is who I want to work with. Where he met Lou, I don't know. How he met Lou, beyond me. But we took the record to Lou, and I remember almost being in like a state of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not panic, but like, I was super concerned. Like, I was like in a room full of people I didn't know. All these new people were coming. All these opportunities and stuff were starting to present themselves to me, and I was overwhelmed by it. So I'm like, yo, like, I don't know. I remember telling my dad, like, yo, I don't know if I should go. I don't know these people. I don't know if they're Illuminati. Like, craziness. And we ended up going and sitting in the studio, which ironically enough it's right around the corner from here. It's the next street over. So I think coming here and filming this with you it's almost like fate. But Lou heard the reference track and he was like, wow, this is good. And we sat down and we worked on Beam Me Up with Lou. And he laid these like orchestral keys, these like deep keys on it. And it just built and built and built. And I had a verse. And I remember Third, when he would write, I like to be in the room when I write. Like, I like to build the track and like the producer could just throw it on a loop and like leave me alone. But like, I like to be physically in the room with the producer, and I'll write that way. Third needed to be in seclusion. I laid down my verse, and I remember Lou telling me, and I was looking for like approval at this point from anybody to say like, this is good. And Lou was like, you wrote that? And I was like, yeah, I wrote that verse. And he's like, that was actually really good. And it was like the building blocks of that record. Third came in, and he laid down a verse on the reference, and it was like, I'm on a whole nother chain, a whole nother level, uncut diamond, I'm on a whole nother chain. And when he heard my verse, I think he was like, oh shit, like, this record could be huge. And he went in the car and rewrote his record. It came back in, and it turned out to be I got you looking at my soul when it ain't looking right. Coat, but it ain't looking nice. See, but in a minute it might be like Lee when you see me. And the cohesiveness between him and I in the hook and how we built it with Lou, it turned into something that we couldn't have put together any better. And that record, I'm on Fire, was the foundation of, I think, who I am as a musician, who I became, was really the foundation of the friendship that Third and I would build at that point. Because the record itself for me was, I didn't really waste much time with recording and stuff. That was one of the first things that I recorded, and I was just like, I'm going in. Like, I'm not gonna hold back and whatever. It really helped me become comfortable behind a mic and writing and all that stuff, and having worked with people that I looked up to, I was like, I gotta come correct. And what Third talks about on the record, and I just spoke to his brother about this. Third had a way of taking situations that other people might fold from, that other people might, almost become like a hermit from and isolate themselves. And he had a way of taking these situations and flipping it. And not only flipping it, but projecting it and putting it out on the forefront. So when you hear the song that says, "Beam me up, I'm on fire," it is not only figurative in a way to say, like, I'm on fire, like creating music, but he took the utmost painful thing in his life and put it on Front Street for the world to see. There's a level of irony to the entire song, "I'm on fire," while this man is literally covered from head to toe in third-degree burns. Hence the name Third Degree and all this stuff. Like, he took those things and used it as fuel and like a catalyst to drive him as a person, as an artist, and as a man. And I think that song really speaks for who Third was as a person. From that point on, we were locked in recording with Lou weekly, where we'd show up and we'd work on new material, and it was an extremely important part of my life to work with somebody at that level, to have a team around me of individuals that was focused and strong. Third was a father. Like before I was, he had a child before I did, and shortly after releasing Beam Me Up, I had my first. So like we grew as men, as fathers. We definitely lived different lives. Like we almost grew as like siblings, like older brother, little brother type of thing, where like when you're young, you kind of look up to and follow in the footsteps of your older brother or your older siblings, and as you get older, you kind of have that mutual respect where you can put each other in check and like help each other through life. It's not so much looking up to an older sibling or anything like that. You kind of become even. So through fatherhood and through releasing music and business and life in general, just growing from like we ran around with a pretty wild crew. We did a lot of stupid stuff too. We partied pretty hard. We were all over New England, Cali, everywhere. Like we did a lot of stuff. Vegas. And to mature, like the maturity that we would go through as well. Like now compared to then, we are just such different people. So the group DCFAM, whether it's myself, Will, Kenny, Lex, Third, anybody that was affiliated with us, they say like when you have a real friendship with somebody, you could spend years apart, and as soon as you get back together, it's like nothing's changed. And I feel like with those guys, it's definitely that type of brotherhood. Something that I cherish and I'm super thankful that I even had the experience to have as a man, to be able to accomplish things as a group and to be able to do things and see friends of ours do things that we aspire to do on the highest level in the industry that you're in. It just makes everything that much more worth working for. About 2 years ago, we both were in a a very vulnerable point in our lives, where family structure and relationships and things like that in our personal lives were starting to crumble. And if it weren't for Third, I don't know how far I would have gotten. And I hope, that he would say the same. The constant support and, love that we had for each other as best friends and brothers was super high at this point. And I had a support group, I guess you could say, of friends and family and other things that I could do to occupy my time and my mind and to keep myself busy, whereas I'm not so sure Leonis had that. And I think the need for perfection or success or the constant, I think Third was very much obsessed with achieving a level of success. However, that level of success never was enough for Third. I feel like he wanted to attain things that he would have attained if he just gave himself a break. And all the while fighting through all the stuff that he was going through, like I said, like he helped me out a great deal. And he pushed me through the lowest points in my life that a human being could go through. And just when I thought things started to look up, I remember speaking to him the night prior, and I feel like as human beings, like as we all have ups and downs, I was on my way to work, and oddly enough, and this isn't going to even sound like a real story, but a friend of mine texted me in the morning, and Third and I did a show at his restaurant years back, and my friend texted me that morning, and he goes, I was on my way in to work, and this came on my playlist, and it was "Beam Me Up, I'm on Fire," and he sent me the screenshot of it, and I was like, wow, that's funny. And that started what was going to be a good day for me. And I went into my shop, I opened up, and I'm with my dad and, 3 of my best friends that I was lucky enough to work with at the time. And I got a phone call from a group member from DCFAM, from Lex. And we don't speak too often, so whenever I get phone calls from those guys or anything, like, it makes me happy. So I answer the phone like I would, like, what's up? And he's like, yo, man, it's not good. And I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, and he's like, yo, it's Third. And I'm like, yo, like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. Like, what do you mean it's Third? Like, what's good? And he's like, yo, he's gone. And I was in the middle of a cut, and I'm like, yo, like, what do you mean, bro? And he's like, I just got off the phone, da-da-da-da-da. They said they found him in his truck. And it was like the most, like, it just felt like everything was just like taken out of my, like, I lost everything in that second, man. Like, I don't know if anybody has had something like that, but it's the most like cliche of things to get a phone call and be like, yo, so-and-so's dead. Like, no, nothing was going on. No, wasn't sick, wasn't in the hospital, just like, and your life just changes. And I just remember breaking down and calling. I hung up the phone with Lex, and I called Will, who lives around the corner. And he knew, like, he was like, yo, like, this isn't real. Like, I didn't even get to say hello, and he's like, yo, this isn't real. And I'm like, yo, Will. And he's like, no, like, did we lose him? And I'm like, bro, like, yeah, that's what I heard. Like, what? It was like the most overwhelming feeling in the world in that moment. I had already lost so much up until that moment, and like when I say Third was like my right hand at that point, like he was my right hand. And to lose that, not to be selfish, but like I lost so much in my own world just in that one moment. And I just broke down and spent the rest of the day trying to figure out like what actually happened. And it's still pretty unclear to this day what happened to my friend. But he's no longer with us. And it has affected us in many ways. The city, family and friends, our group, his children. Third was a great man. He was a great friend. He was the most talented person, the most charismatic person I've ever met in my life. And he was responsible for a lot of the success and growth as a person and as an artist and as a musician that I had. And I owe that man a lot. And I just couldn't be more. It still kills me and pains me that like I can't call Third, or we can't go to a session, or he can't sit in on my session, or I can't shoot the shit with him and make him laugh, but it was an honor to have had him be part of my life and be my best friend and a friend of mine for that period of time. Obviously, like I got Third tatted on me. I have DCFAM tatted on me. It's something that's literally going to be with me for the rest of my life. Carrying that cross of him being gone is definitely going to be with me forever. But as a man, to know what he went through in life and what he carried and was able to accomplish, given the circumstances, it has lit a fire under me and pushed me to do things for my children, for myself, for my business, for my family, that I know he would want to see. He was the biggest supporter of any of his friends and family. So I think it would be, I questioned quitting music for a while. I questioned, like, it's just not worth it. But Third would always tell me, like, yo, like, you're special, man. Like, you're special. Like, you're the one. Like, you have a gift. Like, so for somebody to believe in you that much and to sacrifice, I think Third could have popped by himself a long time ago, but he was selfless. And it's made me write music better. Like, there's times when I'm in the studio where I can feel almost as if he's like over my shoulder, especially like having recorded the song I did for him. Like there's times where I'm like, yeah, like this is down the right path. Like this is it. This is so it's made me write better. It's made me focus more. Don't get me wrong, like I think people think as like musicians or whatever, like 24/7, like you're doing music. If that was the case, then there'd be no subject. There would be no there would be nothing to the music itself. And I feel like, as at least for somebody like me, I need that trial and tribulation period, and to experience things in life to make the music that much more relatable. So you can feel it, like you could feel that pain, you could feel that struggle, you could feel almost everything that I've been going through in the art and music that I've been making for Lost in Boston. Yeah, I don't think Third would have ever wanted me to give up. I don't think he would have ever wanted me to quit music. I don't think that he would support that decision. I think that he's up there right now, you know, cheering me on, and knowing that he's part of, knowing that his kids are part of Lost in Boston and the music that I made, that he's influenced it. You know, I think that he would be proud, and I think that that's one of the things that I hope to do is to release that body of work that I can be proud of, that the city of Boston can be proud of, that he would be proud of, that's something that he would support and put out, and to just tell my story and all these sub-stories that are part of it the best way that I can. And I think that's what Lost in Boston is. I think that it's the ability to take from this place where you may be searching for who you are, or searching for what you should do or where you should be, and taking everybody and everything that's involved in showcasing it. I think, like, personally myself, like from a child, like having gone through some traumatic things in my childhood, I feel like what I learned to do to cope was to harness, and at the right time let out those things in a positive way. So like going through things as a child that sucked, my outlet was hockey. So it's like, go through all this shit, get picked on, have issues at home, hear and see things that I didn't need to see and go through, and then hit the ice. And like I always said, that was like my safe place, and let it out there. So in life, like with the loss of Third, or separation, or anything that I have gone through or go through, even if it's positive, to take that and allow yourself to feel however you have to feel, but to remember it. And I wrote a song in about 2010 called Remember the Memories. And like, memories to me are one of the most important things that we have as human beings. When your mind starts to deteriorate and you forget things, and you're not capable of remembering feelings or times and people or whatever, like, your quality of life depreciates. So the ability to remember that feeling, and I remember things so vividly. Like when I walk into a room and when something happens, I can tell you what people were wearing, what it smelled like, how warm it was, how cold it was, what time it was, time of day. To take those moments and be able to store them and use them when it's necessary, and to harness that energy for good, I think it shines through, as you'll see on Lost in Boston, with a lot of the storytelling is very much so timelines of what's gone on in my life. But it's helped me heal so much. Like sitting down, speaking with somebody about my problems has never really worked for me. Confronting them, showcasing them, and healing has been the most beautiful thing that I could do.